Hi all, this is Kanu Bhutani here, and today we will be seeing some top 5 financial questions for a business analyst. So, moving on to first question. So, the first question of the day is, can you describe a time when you identified a potential risk in a financial project and developed a plan to mitigate it? Now, as a business analyst, there is one project I was working on, a financial project. It was for the stock market, and the customer wanted to know or design a system to understand how to help the customers invest in the stock market and that customers earn the higher returns. So the risk was that sudden downturns which are happening when the stock market is going on. So we have to understand the sudden downturns that are happening, and then based on these sudden downturns, the customers will be losing their investments and the banks will be facing financial losses. So, as a business analyst, what risk assessment I did to get this resolved, the mitigation plan was that first it was conduct a market research or analysis. So it was to identify any potential trends or indicators of a market downturn. Then is to develop a early warning system. So as you know that when the market is going on and we know based on some of the indicators that will the market shoot up or will it come down. So those all early warning systems we can make to alert the bank and any significant changes in the stock market. Then it is create a communication plan to inform the customers and the bank to see that the risk that is associated with the investing in the stock market and encourage them to diversify their investment. Then it is to implement a risk management strategy that will include the diversifying the bank's investments and to see that it is not impacting the market downturn. So that these all things, will be helpful for a business analyst to able to identify and mitigate the potential risk of the market downturn and help the people also and protect the bank from the financial losses. Then we move to second question. How have you managed a financial project with multiple stakeholders and conflicting priorities? So, in always many of the projects as a business analyst, we face this thing that there are multiple stakeholders and they have their own priorities, conflicting priorities. So, there was one financial project which I was working on, which is payment processing system. And in this, there were multiple stakeholders. One was IT department, the finance department, and the customer service team. Each one of them were having their own priorities and their own requirements. So, what I did as a business analyst is very interesting to know the conflicting priorities management. So, the very first thing in this is identify the stakeholders and their priorities. So, being a business analyst, I first saw who stakeholders are. Like in our case, it is IT department, finance department, customer service team, and what their priorities are. Then understand their motives, goals, and challenges, and then ensure that their priorities are appropriately addressed. Then, second thing comes communication, which is like a business analyst has to be very clear in communicating with the stakeholders, ensuring that everyone's project progress, changes, and updates are informed accordingly, and then provide them with the regular meetings, regular status reports, and answering questions on the timely manner. Then comes facilitate collaboration. The BA should able to talk and collaborate between the stakeholders and ensure that everyone gets what they want. Their goals should be achieved. So this includes identifying the overlap between the two things. Say IT department needs one report, finance department needs another report. So we have to understand what it overlaps and define their roles and responsibilities and then resolve their conflicts accordingly. Okay. Third one is prioritizing the requirements. So it is not necessary that we get everything from them and at once we resolve everyone's priorities. That is also not there. We as a business analyst should be able to prioritize the project requirements, the stakeholder needs, the objectives, which involves balancing the conflicting priorities and identifying trade offs. Once that is done, then it is simply by monitoring the progress that we are on track and on a timely manner we identify and address that. And this also includes tracking the project milestones, the risks, the contingency plans. So this is the way we can actually manage the multiple stakeholders. Moving on to the third question, describe a situation where you had to make a difficult decision in a financial project and how you arrived at that decision. Now, as a business analyst, always you come to a position when there is some difficult decision to be taken and you have to take that decision. So, as one of the financial projects, we were having a new accounting software system where we were having a software vendor. He was actually working and providing us with the solutions, but he had made a critical error in the implementation, which required the additional time and resources to fix. So, what the vendor offered that he will be doing it, but with the extra cost, additional cost. So, I had to, and this will also delay the um, project timeline. So this was like a very difficult decision for me to make. So to make a decision, proper decision and good decision, it is like the very first thing is gather information. A BA has to gather all the information necessary from everywhere about the error, what the impact is, what are the potential solutions, and this also will include the software vendor's project plan and consulting with the team and the project team. Once that is done, then analyze options. So once you decided that okay, I have gathered the information, this all things to be happen. So then you have to evaluate the pros and cons, and then considering the impact on the project timelines, you have to decide the cost of fixing the error. Then the third one is consulting the stakeholders. So now you have brought all the pros and cons and timelines, changed the project timelines. Then you have to tell it to the stakeholders, consult with them, and update them, including the project sponsor, project team, company leadership, to understand their perspective and concerns. Once this is done, then you have to identify and weigh the trade-offs. Now, what is this? This is like you have to identify the each option and weigh the trade-offs between them and understand what impacts it will happen on the timelines, on budgets, financial reporting, because this is a very big thing. There is one error that has happened in the implementation, and it may take a lot of time to fix all this. So then lastly, you have to make the decision. So based on the inputs from your side as a business analyst, what inputs you have given, what inputs you have got from stakeholders, the consultation with them, and with the best interest of the company, you have to decide about taking this decision. So this will really help you to understand and decide and take a proper decision on your project. Fourth one is, can you walk me through a complex financial modeling project you have worked on and how you ensured accuracy of the results? So, being a BA, you have to see and ensure that the results are accurate. So there was one project financial forecast model we had to make to predict the company's revenue, then expenses and the profitability over next few years. So this model is very critical to understand the forecast of the company and give the strategic planning and decision making to make the result accurate. So 5 years, what will happen in 5 years? You have to predict that from the financial forecast model. So it's a very difficult decision. So how you will get the accuracy of the results? The accuracy of the results will be coming from these following things. One is problem and scope definition. As a BA, you have to decide and define the problem statement and what is the scope in the financial modeling project. Once you understand that, then the project objectives, you identify the key variables, the assumptions, define the modeling techniques to be used. Once you have decided that, then comes gathering the data. The business analyst should gather as much as data as he can, and then from the historical financial data, industry benchmarks, economic indicators, and other relevant data sources, your data will keep on updating, keep on getting accurate and reliable. Now, see, for example, in your 5 years of the prediction that you do, the benchmarks, the financial historical data that you collect of the profitability, the expenses, how much revenue is that company having. Slowly, slowly, you will come to know when you keep on comparing, you make the charts, you make the pivot tables based on the huge, humongous amount of data that you have in your system that will keep on getting accurate. Then the third one is that once you get these data gathered, you have to develop a model. Appropriate modeling techniques you have to use. like which includes building the formulas, the calculations, the accuracy, the consistency. Then you have to validate and document your findings. You have to validate the financial forecast model to ensure that they produce accurate results. Not just like that, just giving some formulae or just giving some data into it. You have to take accurate data in your Excel sheets and then which can give you a proper model. That includes the running sensitivity analysis, historical data, and then testing those things, then documenting it with the proper underlying assumptions, the user guide, providing context and documenting any limitations is very important. And the final one will be review and iterate. Once you collect all the data, the results are regularly and iterate as necessary. This includes reviewing the model's input, output, assumptions, and incorporating new data as it becomes available. Once you do these all steps, this will really help you to get the accuracy to your results. And the fifth most important question is, how have you handled a situation where there was a discrepancy in financial data, and how did you resolve it? It is very important question because having discrepancy in financial data is very crucial and we need to resolve it. We can't have any discrepancy in the financial data, as you know. So there was one project, financial analysis project for a company, in which we used to gather the data gathering process. And once we were having the data gathering process, we discovered that there was a discrepancy in data. The discrepancy involved in the revenue figures, which were overstated. Now, the figures which were overstated, so this is a very big discrepancy. So, how we resolve this is very important. The resolution of this was in the steps. Number one, validate, validating your data. As a business analyst, you should validate the financial data accurately, and you have to verify it. It also includes reviewing the source of data, the data entry process, assumptions and calculations that are made. Then is investigate. Investigate the discrepancy. Now here, as you see, we are tackling the and trying to resolve the discrepancy. So we have to investigate that in the revenue figures for a business unit. This will include what? Reviewing the financial statements, comparing the data with the historical trend, and talking to stakeholders. Once this is done, then you have to identify the potential causes. You have to see what are the problems that caused these discrepancies, like accounting errors, changes in business practices, or changes in market environment. There can be accounting errors that can be manual, or it can be typo errors. So you have to check that. You have to check that if there are any changes in business practices, that we have changed our policies and all, and see the market environment, that market environment has changed, so we had these discrepancies in our data. Once that is done, then you have to develop a plan to resolve the discrepancy. Business analyst should identify necessary corrections and adjustments to the data and determining how to communicate the findings to the stakeholders. And finally, it is communicate and monitor. Communicate the findings of the investigations to stakeholders, the root cause analysis, the plan, and how to resolve the discrepancy. Then monitor the situation, ensure that the corrective actions should be taken effectively and the discrepancy does not reoccur. It should not repeat. And any necessary changes to the data management process and monitoring the data on an ongoing basis. Once we do this, we are sure to resolve this discrepancy. So, in this lecture, we saw five most important questions, the situational questions for a business analyst. I hope it was a very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much, and we'll meet in next session. Bye bye.